In addition to periodically uploading short videos answering people's questions submitted by mail, I get a lot of letters asking questions about multiple topics discussed in the book. I will also periodically, perhaps maybe once a month, depending on the demand, offer these live broadcasts and giving people an opportunity to ask questions live. And in order for me to be able to do that, I need to see people's questions, and they just popped up on my screen. I want to make you aware of the fact that some of them are visible to everyone, if I understand correctly, while others are, for one reason or another, grayed out through YouTube's built-in settings to block what they flag as spam. I have no control over that, and I apologize if your question is not directly visible to me. I will try to go through everything, but I obviously can't do it all. So I appreciate your patience and support while I'm working on making this possible. There are a few questions that were submitted prior to me going live, and I'll the first one is from a woman named Kim. Wanted to know how to incorporate Buddhism into everyday life without everyone thinking she's a freak. And I attempted to answer that by text, but I don't know if it was visible to Kim. I said the first step would be to stop caring what other people think. And as I often invite everyone, is to focus less on trying to be a Buddhist and more on being Buddha-like. I understand the apprehension and concern about other people worrying that you may seem like a freak, quote unquote. It's just that I've gone through the process myself of approaching people I've had in my life for many years who knew me as one way, the corporate timber or the going out clubbing timber and partying and whatnot, to all of a sudden some friends seeing me in robes for the first time. And there was a transition period for other people to get accustomed to the fact that it's still me. In fact, it's a better version of me. They just were worried about how different it was from anything they've known. And I perhaps wasn't very patient with them at the time. I didn't understand because in my mind the transition was very gradual. But I would definitely say that if your focus is on being the best version of you that there is, your friends will come around, they'll see it. If they write you off or they think that Buddhism is some kind of a cult or whatnot, and that's what you're worried about, then if they stick around, then you can answer any questions they may have about what it is you're trying to do. And if they don't stick around, it's perfectly natural. I often say that on our spiritual journey, as we awaken to certain realities, some people from our lives will inevitably drop. Let them. It's perfectly okay to bow out of relationships and say thank you. And just, you know, we lose friendships throughout life for various reasons. And it's often, if not always, a misunderstanding or just no longer having a common ground. But I think Buddhism or any kind of spiritual journey actually gives us more common ground with more people, not less. In fact, I see here that a woman by the name of Deb responded to Kim saying, it doesn't matter what others think about you. There will always be someone who doesn't agree or understand your beliefs, but that's okay. And I agree with you, Deb. That's great advice. A really good question from Daniel is, do you think a person can truly be at peace internally while working in the corporate world? And it looks like a few people have wanted an answer to that same question. So I'm glad we're doing this. In fact, I'm glad that we've transitioned from doing events in different locations throughout the world and just doing it live broadcast on here. I think it makes a lot more sense because people from everywhere can tune in rather than it being so limited. Do I think that a person can be truly at peace internally while working in the corporate world? I believe that's very possible, actually. It depends on the corporation, of course, and it depends on, you know, your amount of involvement, I guess, in your day-to-day task. I think if what you're doing is in line with your values, and the company, the corporation you're working in is in line with your values, then of course you can be at peace. I think this struggle that we have of not having internal peace is derived from either saying one thing or doing another, even if no one, or believing one thing and doing another, even if no one knows that our beliefs are contradicting our actions, we know. And that's the key, is to make sure that we are clear about what our beliefs are, about what our core values are, and then making sure that our actions are in line with our beliefs. And so if you're working for a corporation that you perceive as evil, it really, I would take a step back and go, why am I judging it as evil? I've often been asked, what is my retirement plan? Because I clearly don't have one, because I'm not very future focused. And while I'm not currently a supporter of Walmart, for example, I often think to myself, well, what happens if I'm 70 years old and I need a job? Would I accept a job at Walmart as a greeter, just saying hello to everyone? Would I be able to live with myself doing that? And I don't have the answer to that, in the sense that I don't know what I'm going to be like in the future, but answer it now. And I will say I would be perfectly okay with that, because I do not identify myself with what I'm doing. And I can work in the back of a restaurant washing dishes and still find integrity in my work. Now, the other side to that is actually the more difficult side, and I want to answer that. It's not necessarily related to a big corporation, but anything that's not in line with our values. I knew when I was younger that I could make a lot of money being a bartender, but I'm not a drinker. And so there was a conflict of interest, if you would, between what I knew I could do and make a good living doing, but I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And so that goes to your question, and I'm just broadening the scope of it to not just necessarily corporations, but doing anything that's not in line with our core values. And I think that's why it's so important to be clear about what our core values are. I think we can find inner peace once we know what they are and make sure that our behavior is in line with those. And if it isn't, to take a step back and go, okay, then why am I not leaving this corporation and getting a job somewhere that supports my beliefs? And if that's fear, well, making that decision to have fear run your life is, again, not in line with your core values. So the invitation is just to keep living in line with the core values with a whole lot of trust and faith that as long as you do that, everything's going to fall into place, not fall apart. So the inner peace is not dependent upon external stuff, but whether internally you make peace with it, and not in a cognitive dissonance sort of way, because we can convince ourselves of pretty much anything. The idea is to, even in black and white, write down your core values and compare your actions with that list and make sure that you're living in line with them. Last time I did this live broadcast, I tried very hard to answer everyone's questions, and it became very difficult, and I felt very rushed. And if you watch the video from June, you'll see that. But what I would like to do this time around is actually answer more people rather than not answer more people as much as answer each question in more depth, if that makes sense. The challenging part is the questions on my end just run up, and and on your end, we have a hard time with trying to keep this as a conversation. So I'm gonna do my best. I see there are people here from Seattle, from Denmark, from Canada, from Las Vegas, Bakersfield, and Australia, living in the UK. So hello to everyone from all over the world. Really, I wish I could see you as well. And let's see, Cape Town, South Africa, hello. Florida, Wisconsin. Let's see, Townsville. I have a question. As an activist, I get disappointed when people do nothing when we deal with social injustices. I don't force my belief on everyone, on anyone, but I still struggle with understanding passive behavior. I often invite everyone, as I've taken the invitation myself, to promote what we love instead of bashing what we hate. And as is a question coming from someone who considers themselves an activist, are you using your voice to be an activist for something, for what you believe in, for the rights you want people to be granted? Or are you using your voice and your activism, quote unquote, against something? Now, when you're fighting against something, you're fighting from a place of anger, of fear, of disappointment, of rage, and you'll be angry at just about anything you see, whether it's someone who believes the opposite of you or someone who is, as you said, being passive, so to speak, someone who is not as perhaps outraged as you are. And I think that's why I made the first principle of Buddhist Boot Camp, the opposite of what you know is also true, because it's important for us to take a step back and honor where everyone is on their path, even if it means they are choosing to be passive. That's their right. Now you're choosing to be an activist. That's your right. But the moment you start judging them for not agreeing with you, if it was someone else doing the same thing, it would anger you. So don't do it yourself. I hope that answers your question, that there's no name involved here. And I see that it was flagged, but I don't know how to unflag it. I apologize for that. Let's see, Ohio, hello, Stephanie. I wonder if I missed any questions. Again, I do apologize if I missed your questions. They're just streaming on my screen and they get buried. And if I try to start reading one, the next one bumps the whole screen up and it makes it very difficult. Liverpool, England, Sweden. I'm scrolling down. I'm getting to your. I mean, I appreciate all the hellos and niceties. They're wonderful. I am looking for questions. I would love to buy your T-shirt, but it is not available on your website. It is available on the website, Raquel. If you go to BuddhistBootCamp.com, there's a picture of me wearing the shirt. You click on it, and it'll go to the Sana Day website, where you can select which shirt you want, and all the proceeds go to the nonprofit organization of your choice. So yes, they are all available on there. All the shirts are organic, vegan, and they do not in any way contribute to unfair labor, if that's the nicest way to say it. It meets and exceeds fair labor requirements every step of the way. I am not in this to be, I am not a retailer, so selling shirts and all that stuff, it's a different company doing it in order to help support the business. I'm here to help spread the message. So that's what I'm working on. Hello, Sharon in Illinois and Gordon in Scotland. Find you. Darina asked what I think of the quote, "Make yourself the one you are looking to fall in love with. An extraordinary love of others, no doubt, will find you." I've never heard that quote before, Darina, and I do love it. I think that what it calls for is for us to be the kind of person that we would fall in love with, for us to go beyond thinking that certain personality traits are endearing, to actually apply them, to actually be kind, generous, loving, compassionate, unconditionally accepting. And I think by doing that, the people around us, that we will attract more people who are like us, but people who are like-minded. And in that group, we are more likely to find someone who shares our values. So I think in a really broad quote, you know, energy flows where attention goes. And so if your focus is on the positive, you will attract more positive into your life. But in the practical day-to-day sense, it's what I meant is you become that person. You carry yourself in the very same way. You emulate this ideal you have of the person you want to fall in love with, and you become that. And someone who is attracted to that will be attracted to you. Thereby, answering your quote is, I think, it logically follows, is the best way I can answer your question. We've got someone from Austria, someone else from London. Amanda's asking an interesting question. I have been making a lot of changes in my life. My mom is having a very hard time with parts of it. Me getting rid of my TV, not wanting to engage in media, news, celebrity. Do I have any suggestions? It's a bit of a broad question because I don't know if you're living with your mom and if you're forcing her to sit in the living room without a television when she wants to watch TV, or if you guys are living separately and she just calls you on the phone and wants to discuss with you what's going on in the media with celebrities, and you're just saying, I have no idea what you're talking about, Mom. Can we talk about something else? Either way, I think it's really important. The way the book first starts, the very first page, it's not even a page on the book. As soon as you flip over the cover, the first thing you see is a quote by Groucho Marx that says, I find television very educational because every time someone switches it on, I go into another room and read a good book. And so I think that your decision to not watch television and not engage in media, celebrity and whatnot is wonderful. And I think if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. Even if you live with your mom, just go to another room, leave the house, do what you wish. What I'm curious about is if the difficulty you're running into your relationship with your mom is the fact that she wants you to engage with her in these conversations. And I think that's where the conversation about boundaries is really important. I had a challenge with my mother when she wanted to always talk about other people or the weather. All of her sentences always start with he, she, or they. And that may be the case with the media or celebrities. Someone wants to always talk about what's going on in the media and you're not interested or don't know anything about it. And what I did is I just set some boundaries and I said, listen, you know, I love talking to you and I'd love to continue having a relationship with you, but I would like us to not discuss certain things. Just some things are off the table. You want to talk to me about your childhood, you want to talk to me about your present, you want to talk to me about your future, that's fine. But I, in the case of my mother, eliminated any and all sentences that start with he, she, or they, and I said, I never want to talk about the weather. The beautiful thing that blossomed from that challenge is that we did start talking about things that we otherwise wouldn't have. We talked about what she thinks happens after we die. We talked about any books that she's read. We talked about what I'm reading. I offered something that she wanted to hear about and stopped talking about things she didn't want to hear about. And I think boundaries are really healthy. And I think you define the kind of relationship you have with your mother. If you want to have a relationship with her where you can talk about anything and everything, then it's a two-way street. Now, she can't help the fact that you don't know what happened on TV last night. And it'll get really boring for her after a while to start trying to continue trying to get information out of you. But I think boundaries are really, really healthy. So I without having more information about your situation, that's the best answer I can offer. You know, with me not watching television or reading newspaper or magazines for years, I have no idea what's going on in the world. And I just had a conversation with my friend yesterday about how interesting it is when I do check in every once in a while, just kind of skim the headlines, how something that is so major, so big in one person's life, someone else somewhere else is either completely oblivious to it even going on, or the opposite is the biggest part of their lives. And there's no right or wrong here. Whatever it is that we decide to focus our attention on, we become really passionate about, it becomes a really big part of our lives. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think a common denominator is important, whether it be your mother or any friendships you may have. I apologize. I'm trying to find where I left off on the questions. There are so many. Thank you guys so much. From Texas to where else? Some beliefs as long as we can live. Core and belief. Oh, I see. Your question was cut in half. A slightly different take on the corporate world question, I suppose, but would your advice be the same for those for us in a relationship where we are the only one focusing on being more Buddha-like? As in, can we find inner peace within these relationships, even with a partner or family? We don't hold the same beliefs as long as we can live in line with our core beliefs and values. Absolutely. I'm not sure if your name is Alan or Elena or Helen, but to answer your question, you know, it's really important to think about, and that's why I always invite you, write down your core values, because if your core values, if one of them is to be accepting and loving and unconditionally supportive, that actually doesn't just mean that you're supportive of someone who believes the same things you do. It means being supportive of someone who believes the opposite, whether it be a family member or your partner. It's not up for you to change them. It's not up for them to agree with you on everything. It's about the two of you agreeing to have a common ground. And so can a Republican be in a relationship with a Democrat? If they're adult about it and mature, absolutely. Can someone be on the path to Buddhism and another, a devout Christian or a Jew or anything? Absolutely. It's just a matter of respect. And so if you find that you can't be in a relationship with someone who disagrees with you, the problem isn't your belief. The problem is a lack of respect, either on your part or on theirs. I don't think that we need to find someone who believes the same things we do, who eats the same things we do. We just have to get rid of that blueprint in our heads. I think we all have this idea, this solid blueprint of what a relationship should look like. And that plays itself in so many different ways. Either we think that if you're married to someone, both of you need to go to bed at the same time. But that's not necessarily the case. Or you have to eat dinner together every night because your parents did, and that's how you think a marriage should be. The healthiest thing any relationship can do, not just in the beginning, but throughout, is wipe that canvas clean and go, what building blocks do we want to have in our relationship? Not what are we going to try to fit, what mold are we going to try to fit our relationship into? And so it's really important when two people come together that they're together for the right reasons, not to enable each other, not to challenge each other at every turn, but to just say, you know, if we're in love and we want to share that and have fun together, then that's great. I don't need you to believe what I believe in order for that to take place. And if I do, then I'm the one with a closed mind. I'm the one who is not unconditionally accepting and supportive. And granted, you know, I'm suggesting to be really open-minded, and I'm not saying that acceptance means tolerating what is harmful. You know, if you believe that you have a right to independence and to do what you wish, and your partner believes that you need to be under their thumb, then yes, there's a serious problem there. But as far as one of you wanting to be more Buddha-like and one of you not, absolutely not. My best friend in the whole world is a church-going, God-loving, Jesus-buddying Christian, and she often says that her husband is the most Christian man she knows. And he's Jewish, and he never goes to church, you know, and he does not share her beliefs, but she understands that it's not about being Christian, but it's about being Christ-like, and her husband is incredible. I know them both very well, and I love them both very, very much. They couldn't be more different. So to answer your question, it's not about having the same belief system at all. It's about having mutual respect. I hope that helps. Are there political parties in the West that are aligned with Buddhist values and principles? I'm not sure. It's a screen name. It's not an actual name. I have no idea. I couldn't even list to you all the political parties in existence. So I definitely not anyone in particular. So I don't know how to answer that question for you. Anna asked, I'm working on being more grateful for things in my life. It has really changed me, but I'm having a really hard time being grateful for being alive. What can I do to change that? It feels really hard. I'm having a really hard time being grateful for being alive. Oh, Anna, I'm not sure why that feels hard. I'm certain that question calls for a lot more information. I think the reason I find myself very grateful to be alive is the mystery of it all. I'm just in awe of it. I have no idea how it works. Every night when I go to bed, I have no certainty that I'm going to wake up the following morning. And when I do, that in itself is magic to me. I have no idea how it works. With the same awe with which people sit there and watch a lava lamp just doing its thing, even though you have no idea how it works, or any of us watching a microwave melting cheese. We have no idea how it works, but we love that it does. That's kind of my personal viewpoint on life. I have no idea how it is that I'm alive, what it is that's making all of this work, and yet I'm watching it with complete awe. And I'm not faking this. I mean, I have such joy and appreciation for life itself that in itself I'm grateful for, because it's magic. It's just, again, I'm not sure how to answer your question without more information, but personally, that's how I find gratitude for being alive. Life itself has been really incredible to me. And I'm not going to say that it's always been kind to me, but looking at my life now, it must have been. Even all the challenges along the way, they've all led me to today. And I wouldn't be here today had it not been for all of those things. So whatever it was that I thought was painful or difficult or horrible in the past, quote unquote, those are just judgments. Whereas in reality, none of them have broken me. I'm still here. And so I'm grateful for all of that. I'm grateful for life, and I'm grateful for what it could bring. It's all a mystery. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Do you have a date for the release of your new book? AJ, I do not have a date for the release of the new book. I am continually writing and editing, and it's something much more organic than the first one, which was a collection of journal entries. And so I have no experience doing this. I'm writing and it's flowing, and I'm trying to make it flow. I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the year. That's my intention. Whether that's going to actually happen, I don't know. There are a lot of moving parts involved in it, and writing is just a part of it. I do have the cover of it designed already. I do have a title for it. I do have about half of it written, and I'm working on doing more. I apologize for not having more information for you than that, or an exact date, but it's going to happen when it needs to happen. The last thing I want to do is rush it. I don't feel any urgency behind that other than eagerness. And I don't think that's a quote unquote proper motivator, if you would. But I appreciate the anticipation. Thank you, AJ. Oh, wow. There's so many hi people from all over the world. Oh, wow. Nusa. Hi. Never did get to Queensland when I lived in Australia. Not only was I in Australia, I was in Noosa. I was right there. It was fantastic. Let's see. All right, I'm scrolling down. Thank you guys for being patient with me. There's a couple of questions, one from Megan and one from Sharon, that are very, very similar. Megan wanted to know, how do you clear mental obstacles from your practice? And Sharon asked, what technique do you use to quiet your mind? I'm always very hesitant to provide what people consider or call meditation advice or a specific technique, mainly because the most common comment I get about people who try to meditate is, I feel like I'm doing it wrong, or I can't meditate. And the only reason they feel like they're doing it wrong is because someone at some point told them the right way to do it, quote unquote, the right way to do it. There is no right way to do it. There are multiple methods of clearing your mind, or what was the other? To quiet the mind, or to clear mental obstacles from your practice. I talked a lot about this in previous videos about anxiety, naming your demons, finding out whatever it is. A lot of these questions are very broad, and so it's very difficult to answer them because I don't know what you're specifically asking, and I can answer a question over the course of an hour. But the techniques I use to quiet the mind is, for me, a focal point, finding one thing to focus on, and when the mind drifts off to something else, catch it and bring it back. That focal point for you can be anything from a prayer to a mantra, to your breath, whatever works for you. The important thing is to not get so hung up on there's only one way to do it, and if you can't do it, then you're doing it wrong. It may not be the right way for you. Find what works for you. Like I said, there are other videos on here where I talked about if it's anger that keeps rising, or jealousy, or anxiety. It's really cool to watch those videos, find a method that works for you, and report back. Let me know. Comment on those videos. Answer I'm constantly receiving questions in the mail. Sorry, I'm doing this. You can't see this, but I have a pile of mail right here from all over the world, which is fantastic. A lot from Australia. Thank you, Aussies. I love you so much. Yeah, find a method that works for you. And I think first and foremost, stop comparing your method with what someone else said is the only way to do it. There's no one way to do it. How is the Books to Prisons project going? Leon asked. Please provide feedback. How many prisoners have been reached, and how are they doing? Leon, I could talk about this for the next 5 hours, and I won't. Thousands of copies of the book have been distributed. Over 5,000 copies of the book, all the way across the US, Canada, UK, and Australia. I have letters. In fact, one of them right here is a thank you card from a prison. This one is McFarland Federal Correction Facility for Women. I just got this in the mail yesterday. It's a card from multiple inmates who have all received a copy of the book, and attached to it was a letter from the inmate who said, and she said, remind me to tell you how I ended up getting a greeting card in prison. She said there's an interesting story behind it, and I'm curious to find out what it is. But the program with prisons is going really, really well. You can always submit a lot more contributions through the Buddhist Boot Camp website, and also contact me if you work at a prison or know of a prison program that receives books, and I will send more books that way. That's the intention, and that's what we're doing, and it's working really well. I wish I could post all the letters that I receive. A lot of them are difficult because they contain a lot of personal information, so I can't exactly post them all online. But to answer your question, the program is going really, really well. A lot of different prisons have adopted the book, and many more to come. So, and it's not me doing it; it's all you guys. So, thank you again. Someone from Germany. Let me see if I can understand the question. How can I keep equality when there is offending injustice, and how to avoid to interpret equality as a Buddha-like quality, as disinterest or insensibility? I'm not sure I understand the question. How do you keep when there is offending injustice? I think it's being offended is a choice, and it's a choice we don't have to make. there is a lot of injustice in the world if that's what we focus on. And if we zoom out, we'll see that there's a lot of justice as well. It's very much a yin and a yang. I'm not saying to ignore the injustice, but to not focus on it, to realize that it is equally balanced. And again, equally in line with the activist, focus on what works. Direct your attention. If you're an activist or if you see injustice, promote the justice end of it rather than being an activist against it. Find your peace in the pro, not the con, if that makes sense. In the pro, not the anti. In the for, not the against. It's a loaded question, and I'm not quite sure I understand it. I would love for the questions to be more specific. There's a lot of injustice in the world, but there's also a lot of justice. My invitation is, again, be part of the just and draw more attention to that rather than to the opposite. Otherwise, you'll just direct more attention to that. Someone else asked, what advice do you give to someone interested in being a Buddhist? Don't be so interested in being a Buddhist. Be Buddha-like, but don't worry about labels. Forget the labels. Doesn't matter. Sorry, I can't. And that same answer goes to someone interested in being a Christian. Don't worry about it. Just be Christ-like. Who cares what your label is? I'm a lot of things. Not one of them defines me. So I answered that question, I think, in the book. Someone asked, said, oh, are you Buddhist? And I didn't know how to answer that. I'm a lot of things. Oh, great answer. I realized I was only looking for myself. I'm glad. All right, thank you for the feedback. I am glad. Are there any political? Oh no, we got to that one. Scrolling down. I apologize, guys. Benson, test. It's working. Benson, you doing okay? Oh wow. Let's see. Someone asked about a post that I had posted back in March. Said I personally don't have kids or pets. Freudian slip. In order to keep my life simple, and that is why I feel rich. What would you advise to those who have kids or pets and the responsibilities? Oh, I don't have kids or pets because that would be unfair. I travel too much. I'm not around enough to care for someone, and that would be unfair. I wouldn't be able to provide for them. So kids and pets are not, it all depends on our intention on why we have them. If the intention is to enrich our lives and our lives are in fact enriched by them, then we're good. There's no problem. Everything we do in order to provide for those kids or for those pets, we do with joy. We don't resent them like, oh, I have to work full time because I have to feed you. There's joy in our job because we're doing it to have money with which to feed our kids or pets. There's no resentment there. We don't feel resentment for the responsibilities that having a pet comes with. We did it out of joy, and we need to remember that when we do whatever it is that we do. A full-time job, if you would. I'm not sure if this is still being recorded because I'm seeing a buffering thing on my end, but I'm just going to keep going in case it is. I think the price of it is what we need to make peace with. I choose not to have children or a pet because the price of that is that I couldn't live the kind of life that I want to live. And that wouldn't be fair to the child or the pet, because I would either take it for granted or resent it. And that's not fair to anyone involved. But if you choose to have that and all your life decisions are in line with that, fantastic. It seems like we're having some technical difficulties. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just video or video and audio. Let me know. We lost you for a minute, but you are back. Okay, see you now. Thank you. All right. Well, let's see. I think our connection is, there's something going on here, and I'm not sure what to do about it. Let me see. Stream status says okay. We seem to be doing okay. I apologize for that. All right. Thank you guys for letting me know you can see and hear me. And it doesn't look like we've lost anyone, so I'll just keep going. Someone from Taiwan said that they found it much easier to support their interest in following Buddhist. However, in the USA, it is not easy at all. Do you find it easier to practice different regions of the world? Chris, to answer your question, absolutely not. I don't think it matters at all what part of the world we're in. Personally, I had just as peaceful of a time practicing in Hawaii as I did in downtown Los Angeles, as I did on the road, as I do now in the cabin in the middle of nowhere. I don't think where we are is a part of any of this at all. In fact, I think that there are more opportunities to practice in the middle of a big city than there are elsewhere. And I'll be honest about that, because when I was living in Honolulu specifically, or Portland, you know, every time I walked out my front door, I was surrounded by a great variety of people, and some were homeless and some were not. Some were very wealthy, some were middle class. And just from the walk from my front door to the health food store, I would cross quite a few homeless people, and it gave me so much opportunity to give. Whether, you know, I talked a lot about, you know, just making, I always left the house with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because I would inevitably run across someone so hungry who would appreciate it so much. And so I had much more opportunity to practice in the middle of a really busy city than I do out here. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I don't see anyone. The most I could ever do is, if I'm in town, give someone a ride up the hill closer to the hiking trails than there. But that's like the most practice that I get. And this is temporary until I move elsewhere. But I don't think, I think we're confusing rituals with practice. And my focus is definitely on practice to do. You know, it's not about sitting down and meditating or chanting for an hour every day. Nothing wrong with that. But it's about rolling up our sleeves and actually helping out in the world in whatever way we can. And we can do that anywhere. So to answer your question, it doesn't matter if we're in Taiwan or in the USA or in LA or in Seattle. Where we are is completely irrelevant. I apologize. I see that someone said, lost you for a few minutes there, but you're back. All is good, video good. All right, wonderful. Thank you guys so much. I apologize for that technical difficulty. I'm surprised there's even internet access out here. I did receive a warning message about a dust storm in the area, and when it's windy, we lose internet connectivity. So I'm glad we're even able to do this. Thank you guys so much. Let's see. I apologize, I'm scrolling for other questions. If you only saw this on my end, it's quite overwhelming. I don't know if you can see it on yours. For whatever reason, most of the questions are blacked out publicly or grayed out, but I can still see them, which I'm grateful for. The person who asked about being an activist said that love the pros and cons, just have a hard time standing still or keeping quiet if I see injustices. I still have work to do. That's pretty much it. It's when it's not about standing still when we see an injustice. It's about how can I be part of the solution here? What am I fighting for? Not what am I fighting against, whatever that is. If you gave me a topic, we could talk about it. But again, a lot of these questions are very, very broad. So I'm sorry I can't give you a more specific answer. Oh, interesting question. Should I go back and try to heal things from my past? Or is it best to move forward? Kim, thank you so much for this question. I think it hits the heart of my focus. And there are two methods to quote unquote dealing with wounds from the past. One method is, yes, to go back, to dig deep, to ravel the layers and find out where the injuries from, what started it, what's at the core. And the theory goes that when we find out what it is, we can do away with it. It'll dissipate and it'll go away. But that's one method. The other method, the method I choose, and the Buddha explained it, I think, best. When you get shot by an arrow, you have one and only one concern, and it's to get the arrow out. It doesn't matter who shot the arrow, how far away they were, whether it was a crossbow or wood, or none of that matters. What matters is get the arrow out. Focus on that. That is the one and only concern. But I think especially in Western culture, we focus so much on who did what to whom. We try to assign blame. Where did this happen? Where did it start? Who did it and what? None of that is relevant to our healing, in my opinion. I believe that we at this point can choose to change our habitual tendencies without being so concerned with, well, I act this way because my parents were this way, or because this happened to me as a child, or because those are explanations. That's great to explain why we've been a certain way up until this point, but they are not an excuse for being that way from this point forward. What happened in the past is in the past, and we cannot use it to justify our behavior in the present. We can choose to be different starting today if it works to our benefit, and we can stop the habitual tendencies that are detrimental to us today if we honor the fact and appreciate and respect the fact and own the fact that they are detrimental. But we have to realize that we are the ones in control. It is nobody else's fault. We have to stop assigning blame to others or looking for a reason for why we are there. Just own it. Write down your core values. Describe in detail the kind of person you want to be, and then be it. No excuses. I hope that helps. That is my answer. That's what I've got. Thank you for asking that question. I'm scrolling down, looking for more. Oh, wow. It's funny, these. Let's see here. Oh, David, thank you. He said, no need to apologize. We're enjoying the moment, even the waiting. Thank you, David. You either do or you may not have any idea how much pressure it is to be on this end and have hundreds of questions come at me at a time. So thank you, David. I really appreciate you saying that. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm scrolling through. There are a lot of positive feedback about the fact that we're still on and live. A dust storm sounds exciting. Not so much. Apologize in advance if it's too personal. How do you make a living in the middle of nowhere? I really would like to move away from the 9-to-5 work, but I have to pay bills. Oh, there is a link, I believe, on my website somewhere. You can do a search for a video. I think on the website, on BuddhistBootcamp.com, under the videos tab, there's actually an interview called The 20-Hour Work Week, and I think it answers a lot of that. But in a nutshell, it's not, eliminate those bills and you can live in the middle of nowhere as well. Go backpacking, camping for a while, and you will see how little we actually need and how easy it is to live with a lot less. There's really not much that we need. And when you figure that out, you realize you do not need a 9-to-5. Unless, of course, to tie that into a previous question, if you made certain obligations to have children or to have a pet, every decision comes with a price. And it's not just a price like the cost of it, but then it means, oh, I have to work a 9-to-5 job. I made the decision a long time ago that I want to lead a simple and uncomplicated life. And from that moment forward, every decision I made, I had to cross-reference it with that decision. I want to lead a simple and uncomplicated life. Oh, so-and-so wants to go on a trip to this part of the world, and this is how much it costs, or this person wants to go hang out on this night. And it's like, well, that's complicated, or that's difficult, or that's challenging. And I was just like, okay, no, I'm not going to do that because I want to lead a simple and uncomplicated life. Every decision has a ripple effect. Before making it, follow it out and make sure it's in line with the kind of life you want to lead. That was not so much of a nutshell, but that's really it, is limit your bills and you won't have bills to pay. It's really that simple. Oh, I love this. I'm not sure what your name is, but I didn't know about you or your book. I was too busy in corporate America. Sorry, I'm now a believer because now in my cart. You don't need to apologize for being in corporate America. We've all been there. Is mindfulness a large part of your lifestyle? Chris, it is my lifestyle. Being mindful of the ripple effect of every thought, word, and action. Absolutely. Every decision I make, what to buy, where to buy it from, what to eat, what not to eat, what to drink, what not to drink, what time to go to bed, what time to wake up, what to do, how much exercise to get. It's all, there's so much mindfulness involved and awareness of the big picture in every step. And I think that's why it's important to, what is this, the 5th time I've said it in this video, write down your core values. Write a paragraph describing the kind of person you want to live, and then cross-reference it with your life. That's mindfulness. It's just being mindful that your decisions are in line with your values. So yes. Susie, can you please come to DC is the question. I did come to DC. It was wonderful. In fact, I spent quite a bit of time on the East Coast in the DC area and Maryland and Virginia, and I loved it so much. It was a fantastic part of the book tour. If and when the time allows, I may do it again, or we'll just keep doing this so I don't have to come to you, because Susie, if I'm in DC, then someone else who is in Germany or Denmark or anywhere else in the world that people tune in, they won't be able to do it. So that's what's going on. Someone said I emailed the PDF of my first book that I wrote to your publicist. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I receive a lot of stuff. My publicist is really good about filtering a lot of that out. I'm not saying that your email got filtered out, but there is a large list of books to read, a lot of stuff that comes in that is obviously impossible for me to go through. That's why I strongly encourage handwritten letters, and between that and all the letters I get from prison that I respond to, it's very time consuming and in a wonderful way. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, I'm sure you sent the email. I'm sure it will eventually get to me, and I will respond when I get the chance. If contacting you through my publicist is the right thing to do. Linda, how about Tucson? I was in Tucson as well. It was great. I think I had a couple of different events in Arizona. Sorry, I need to scroll back up. Would you consider your next book a page encouraging the learning of meditation each morning, maybe a guide for someone who hasn't started? I answered that question earlier today about not giving meditation advice because, again, it implies there's a wrong way to do it, and there's no wrong way to do it. But I can talk about exactly that in the next book. Perhaps I will. Oh, thank you. Someone said doing an awesome job. Thank you. You're an inspiration, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Getting to know you through your posts, videos, and reading your book have impacted me positively, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you. AJ, finally a name attached to the screen name. Thank you. I learned from all of you as well. This is a two-way street, from all the comments, from the posts, from the letters. This is how we figure out what it is that makes us tick, by observing other people's behavior patterns. And we're all students and we're all teachers. And I thank you for also being in my life. Brilliant answer. Thank you for answering that. Okay. You're very welcome. It looks like we'll be wrapping up here pretty soon. Thank you, Dorina, for understanding, saying the universe intends for you to read it. It'll find you. Yes, it will. Let's see here. Thank you, Timur, for your time. I will take one more question. Let's see here. Well, this question was seconded, so I will answer it. Any practical advice to give love and kindness to someone who is closed, stuck, wounded, or not available in our lives? It's difficult and painful to yourself. We're going to end this live chat on a very serious note, I see. How to give love and kindness to someone who is stuck or wounded or not available. There is an enlightening book called The 5 Love Languages that describes how each of us communicates love and conversely understands love when someone communicates it. Some of us show love through language, some of us do it through touch, some of us do it through gift giving, etc. And it's really important that when we're dealing with someone we care about, that we understand their love language, that we speak their language, because we may do everything we can to show them that we love them. But if we're doing it in our love language, not in theirs, it doesn't matter how much we give, they may still not see it as love. So it's really important for us to, in a sense, learn the different love languages and be bilingual or even trilingual in the nutshell of the golden rule of treat other people the way you want to be treated. My friend Tom always suggested the platinum rule: treat other people the way they want to be treated. So when someone who is closed, stuck, or wounded, someone is not available in our lives and we want to give them love and kindness, there's also a very important role of first being really clear about the boundaries and making sure that it's not at the cost of love and kindness for ourselves. It's difficult, and I'm inclined to share a personal experience because that is what I know of best. My mother was very ill for a long time, and again, very close-minded, very narrow perspective on what the right thing to do would be for her health. And my dad invited me to come and move to live with them again, to take care of her, so to speak. But she didn't ask me to, he did. And when I arrived, she was very closed, unwilling. Just, I'm doing this with my hands, just very much pushing any suggestion of helping away. She had no interest in it, and I was literally pushed out. And she had the right to do that. She never asked me to come there to help. And it didn't matter that what I was suggesting was the same thing that the doctor was suggesting. She didn't want to hear it, especially not for me, because I only wounded her further by suggesting, even implying, or even talking about the fact that her own son could possibly be of benefit to her. She's the caretaker, and in her mind, that's always going to be her role. God forbid someone takes care of her. So she was not open to that, and I was not open to her being closed off to that. And it was very painful for me to watch someone I love and care about contribute to their own destruction, to their own suffering. And I wanted so badly to help that I actually lost my temper. I yelled at her, which wasn't, it wasn't kind. It was the worst thing I could have done. And I'm very sorry for doing it. I didn't have the skillful means with which to have a conversation with her about how can I help. I just offered my help, and that's not the best way to go about it. So it's really important on how to give love and kindness to someone who is stuck, closed, wounded, and non-available people in our lives when it's difficult and painful for yourself. It's important by realizing that we can't want something more for someone than they want it for themselves. So it's difficult and painful for us if it's harmful to us. And again, this goes back to tolerance does not mean accepting what is harmful. So yes, someone in our life can be abusive, can be difficult. And we need to draw that line of when does it become harmful? And the moment it becomes harmful, it's okay for us to bow out of that relationship. It's okay for us to be compassionate to ourselves. I'm not sure I'm articulating this very well. And at first I thought the question meant one thing, and then I realized it meant another. How can we be supportive of someone when it's causing pain to us? It's to do what we can, period. Not an ounce more. It's only because if we go beyond trying to find a way to explain, to not jump into shark-infested waters to save someone. Because by doing that, we're harming ourselves and them, and no one other than the shark gets any help from that scenario. I'm not suggesting being unkind at all, but it's really important for us to assess the situation and figure out how to best communicate our availability without causing harm to ourselves. I've studied NVC. It's also known as nonviolent communication, which is a really important tool to use when we offer ourselves to someone, to ourselves. And it has a lot to do with some of the stuff I've talked about before. Using the word should is really harmful, or even something as small as when we say no to someone, we're actually saying yes to ourselves. And it's okay to do that. It's one of the things we have a lot of difficulty with on this journey is honoring the fact that all beings are equal, ourselves included. And there's no one more or less important than us. So treat us and others with the same level of love and kindness that you're talking about. Because if you're trying to help someone who is wounded and you're wounding yourself in the process, you've just transferred pain. You just exchanged it. You didn't solve it. I'm not sure if that answers your question. I think looking into NVC is a great way to go about it. But I hope it helps. It's been an hour. And I'm going mindfulness. We already talked about the essence of Buddhism. Definitely not going to get into that. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for being on here. Yes, we will do this regularly if you subscribe to the email list through the Buddhist Boot Camp website, and check your email. Make sure that you add that email address to your contact list, because a lot of it does end up in spam folder, and I hope it doesn't. I only send out one email a month. You'll know when the next event is. Facebook, I post the events on there as well, but again, only about 5% of you see the actual Facebook posts, which I can only control so much. Subscribe to the YouTube feed, and then go a step beyond that and say receive notifications, so you will know when I post a video or when I invite you to a live session. Thank you so much, everybody, for these wonderful questions. I learned so much from these discussions. I wish it was a two-way video. Perhaps one day it will be.